The reflection from the other side. The cursed fortune of the Shadow CEO. Hello, lost souls who seek the darkness. Settle in. The story I'm about to tell you begins with a simple question. How much is your ambition worth? What would you give to have it all? Your peace? Your sleep? Your soul? And what if your immense fortune was built upon shadows from another dimension? Imagine a powerful CEO, surrounded by luxury, but haunted by something no money could buy: pure terror. Welcome to the channel, where we dive into Asian horror dramas that will stir your soul. Subscribe now, hit the bell, and prepare for a story that blends wealth and supernatural panic. Think of a man who built an empire from nothing. But what if that nothing was actually a door to hungry, silent, dark dimensions? In Seoul, the neon city of promised success, lived Kim Ji-hoon. By the age of 20, he was already a legend, the most feared and admired CEO in Asia. His fortune seemed to sprout from the ground, but something followed him. In luxury suites, glass-walled boardrooms, and silent limousines, a shadow stalked him, whispering secrets no human should ever hear. To understand how it all began, we must go back to a cold, rainy night, when Ji-hoon's ambition led him to a forgotten alley in Itaewon. He was young, brilliant, but haunted by poverty, by a hunger that never faded. That night, he entered an antique shop that seemed to exist outside of time. The air was heavy, smelling of dust and regrets. The shopkeeper, an old man with eyes as blank as frosted glass, did not smile. Ji-hoon's gaze was drawn to an object at the back. A full-length mirror, framed in blackened silver, carved with symbols that seemed to writhe. The old man murmured, his voice like dry leaves scraping. "It doesn't give you what you want, young master. It shows you what you deserve." Ambitious and skeptical, Ji-hoon bought the mirror for a bargain, seeing only an object of power. He placed it in the secret room of his new Gangnam mansion, a palace of glass and steel with corridors that echoed with loneliness. On that first night, when he looked at the mirror, his reflection looked better, taller, more confident, with a predatory gleam in the eyes he liked to see. The next morning, his greatest business rival collapsed into sudden bankruptcy. Wealth began to pour in. Every time he wished for something before the mirror, the universe seemed to conspire in his favor. But slowly, the mirror began to collect its price. The reflection that once flattered him now terrified him. He saw shadows moving alone in the room behind him, eyes blinking in the darkness of another dimension inside the glass. And the worst, the fog. Every night, a cold, supernatural mist leaked from the mirror, filling the corridors with the scent of ozone and something very, very ancient. Ji-hoon's successes multiplied, but his mind began to fracture. The visions in the mirror became clearer and more disturbing. He saw alternate versions of himself in other worlds, richer, but grotesquely deformed. Skin stretched tight over bones, eyes like black pits of greed. One night, while closing a billion-dollar deal on the phone, he saw one of those versions, identical to him but with a crooked, hungry smile, slowly waving from the other side of the glass. The true horror began when the Pact demanded a greater sacrifice. His vice president, Mr. Park, a man he envied, vanished without a trace. With a dreadful premonition, Ji-hoon went to Park's office. The place was intact, except for a dark, wet stain on the carpet in the perfect shape of a human shadow. Looking at his reflection in the skyscraper's black window, Ji-hoon saw Park's terrified face screaming silently behind his own, before being dragged into darkness. Ji-hoon finally understood. His fortune was not luck. It was a pact, a trade of souls for gold. Have you ever felt your luck comes at a price? That something too good to be true probably is? Share your story in the comments and like this video if your heart is already racing. Subscribe now, and if you dare, support the channel with a donation. We need your help to keep unveiling the mysteries that will leave you trembling for more. Ji-hoon tried to ignore it. He drowned himself in lavish parties, bought islands, but horror found him everywhere. He woke in the middle of the night with the sensation of cold, invisible hands gripping his neck, leaving purple marks he hid with high collars. His dreams became portals. He didn't sleep. He traveled to dimensions where he was poor, hunted, but desperately alive and human. And then came the most shocking twist. In a night of despair, he screamed at the mirror, asking what it wanted. And the mirror showed his deceased mother, but not the mother he remembered. This one was pale, with black tears running down her face, her mouth sewn shut. She begged silently, pointing at the mirror, revealing it was an artifact of an ancient, macabre Korean greed ritual, a prison for souls. Soon after, the reflection of his destroyed rival appeared, now with a sadistic smile, whispering that the hell where the victims went was luxurious, but eternal. At the peak of his career, during the inauguration of his newest skyscraper, Ji-hoon stood in the top-floor boardroom, surrounded by glass. As he gazed out at the city below, he didn't see his reflection, but the entities, tall, slender, his features but made of pure darkness, extending a hand to touch him through the window. That was the end. He ran to his mansion, grabbed a hammer, and with a scream of rage and terror, shattered the cursed mirror. But there was no liberation. The sound of breaking glass was not an ending. It was a beginning. Each shard on the floor opened a tiny portal. From every fragment, a different whisper echoed through the mansion, a chorus of tormented voices. The air grew heavy. The mansion, once a sanctuary of luxury, turned into a labyrinth of real panic. Lights flickered in Morse code. The elevator descended to floors that didn't exist, opening to decrepit, dark versions of his own home. Shadows no longer followed him. They hunted him, their forms twisting at impossible angles. He felt cold breaths on his neck and saw visions of himself as a monster, devouring souls to gain more power. Driven mad, he returned to the secret room. With bleeding hands, he tried to reassemble the mirror, piece by piece, thinking he could imprison the entity again. And as the last shard clicked into place, the entity emerged from the reformed glass. It was a shadow version of himself, wealthy beyond imagination, but twisted, with long, thin limbs and a smile that was the very embodiment of the void. It offered him one final deal, all the riches of every dimension, in exchange for becoming one with it. Ji-hoon refused. In a swift movement, the entity pulled him into the mirror. He awoke in his bed. The sun was shining. His fortune was intact. The mirror, in the secret room, was whole, as if nothing had happened. He was unharmed. He rushed to the bathroom mirror, his heart pounding with relief. He saw his face, young, handsome, perfect, and then his reflection blinked. Alone. Slowly it smiled, a smile that was not his. The entity was no longer in the mirror. It was inside him. Kim Ji-hoon disappeared days later, leaving his empire in ruins. No one knows where he went. The Gangnam mansion remains empty, neighbors reporting whispers on rainy nights. Some say he crossed into another dimension. Others say he became the shadow itself, forever hunting the greedy. What really happened to him? And if it were you, with all that power, would you have made a different choice? Have you ever questioned the price of your ambition? Do you believe your house hides a secret? If this Asian horror story left you glancing over your shoulder, imagine the others we have waiting. Subscribe to the channel, like, and share your scariest supernatural experience in the comments. And if you have the courage, support us with a donation so we can unearth more dramas that will bring you back, trembling. Thank you for walking with us until the end of the shadows. And beware of strange reflections. Until next time.